Um, this is Rabbi Barry Silver, the Rabbi of Congregation Va-Dor and the head of the Interfaith Justice League. And I want to thank all the candidates for coming out tonight to join us. We're very privileged to have you here. And what makes our democracy work is an educated public. And so we thank you for helping to educate the public. I'm probably the only rabbi to ever have served in the Florida legislature. So I have a little bit of a political background as well. And I'm probably the only rabbi to have sued the state of Florida on many, many occasions as well. What we're going to do is we're going to provide time for everybody, but there's a lot of candidates, so we're going to limit the time quite a bit, and I'm going to limit my time even more. So I'm going to give every candidate 2 minutes to tell us why you think you are the best candidate to fill the seat that was vacated by the passage of Congressman Alcee Hastings. I'll just mention that I was a good friend of his. I thought he was a really good guy and a great speaker. And we'll give you 2 minutes to do that. Then I'm going to hit you with some questions. You'll have 1 minute to answer those questions. Then we'll take questions from the floor. Then you'll have 2 minutes to sum up. So I'm going to ask, maybe we can go in alphabetical order, Sharon, if that works for you. And we're going to ask everyone to say anything you want and to take 2 minutes to do it. We are very politically incorrect at Congregation Va-Dor. So feel free to share any thoughts you want. Don't worry about how it might come across to our congregation or others. This will be recorded, so you can use this information as you see fit in your campaign in the future. Sharon, who's the first one up as far as alphabetical order?
Alphabetical order by first name would be Dale, Mr. Holness.
Okay, go ahead. Dale Holness, you got 2 minutes.
Unmute yourself first, Dale.
Good afternoon to everyone. I thank you, Rabbi Barry Silver and Va-Dor congregation for hosting this event this evening. I actually visited you previously. You had an event for the Congressman Alcee Hastings, and I came up to see you. Grateful to have been there with you. I'm currently County Commissioner for District 9 in Broward. Last year, served as the mayor. I have a wealth of experience. I understand the community wide and far as to what the needs are. And I think the focus has to be, how do we help this community? It's one of the poorest congressional districts in the country. It stretches very far geographically. The needs are huge, especially out in the Glades. We need to work to ensure that we're creating prosperity for all Americans. Means we must make some changes in what we do. One, criminal justice reform is very important. We need to ensure that we're empowering every American to live to their fullest potential, to be as productive as they can be. And if we keep locking up everyone for minor offenses, we're not going to get there. We won't be able to compete with the rest of the world. So that's a big part of what we need to look to do, to see how we can get folks who may make a mistake back into our society to be productive, to take care of themselves and their family. That will be a big part of the platform. A huge piece also is economic growth and development, which means
30 seconds more, Mr.
We must invest
Holness
in communities that have been left behind. The empowerment zone that is put in place by the Congress needs reform to ensure that those communities that it's targeted to help get jobs, get contracting opportunity from the economic development that happens, and that investment abounds there, and use it to put more investment into education, into healthcare within these communities that are high poverty and high unemployment.
Thank you very much.
Next we have, I believe, Elvin Dowling, going by first name. And I do apologize for not using all of your titles. I'm not familiar with it. I believe you're the commissioner and you're the pastor, but go right ahead, Alvin Dowling. It's a pleasure to have you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is the Reverend Elvin J. Dowling, and I am really peacock proud and high and happy to be joining you all this evening. And my very special thanks to Rabbi Silver and your temple for inviting me this evening. I grew up on the corner of Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard and Tamarind Avenue in one of the toughest neighborhoods in Palm Beach County. When I was 6 years old, my favorite aunt was killed as her 2 young children looked on. When I was 14 years old, I lost my first cousin in a drive-by shooting. And then when I was a student at Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, I ended up losing both of my brothers to crime and violence on the streets of Palm Beach County. I am not a career politician. And so if that is what you're looking for, I am clearly not your choice. I believe that the district needs something different. My mentor was Congressman Alcee Hastings. I had the opportunity to write my latest book with him, which was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, which has won the Florida Book Award, is now permanently displayed in the governor's mansion, which talks about the work that I have done for this community. Most recently, as a candidate for office, I sued the governor of Florida. I sued him because he has been disenfranchising the people of this great district, and anyone, needed to stand up and say something. And so in a race filled with lawyers and politicians, it was the preacher that actually stood up to America's next top bully. I will continue to do that if you give me the honor of serving you in the United States Congress. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Our
And
next one up, Greg Musselwhite.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me. And I would also like to mention our thoughts and prayers go out to the people in Israel with all of the strife that's going out there currently. I think our allies and our friends are very important, and America has a very long history of having strong ties with Israel, and I hope that continues. As far as my campaign in the district, I am not, as Mr. Elvin said, not a politician, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm an inspector by trade. So what we like to do is get all of the information, learn from that before we make decisions, which can lead to bad legislation. Now, I ran against Alcee Hastings in the last election, knowing that his health was bad and that he may not make it a whole term. We did not see eye to eye on only a few issues, which are going to be prominent, which is immigration, gun control, and abortion. But I would like to continue his good works on environmental issues, helping the economy in the local area, and agriculture, tourism. He did great works. I would like to try to continue that. I think that moving forward, we need to diversify our economy and make some changes, especially with the recovery from COVID. We need to get the kids in the district, as well as young adults, the tools that they need, which means up in our schools, we need to introduce vocational training back and our trade schools. So everything builds with education, and that's where I would like to start to strengthen our economy. So thank you for having me again, and God bless.
I think our next up is Mr. Perry Thurston. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. And it's good to be here with such a distinguished panel of candidates. I'm pleased to be here. I was born and raised in Broward County, Florida, product of the public schools of Broward County, graduate of Morehouse College and the University of Miami's law school. When I was at the law school is when I met the congressman, as I interned with him when he was a federal judge. These are big shoes to fill. We need to have someone who's prepared to do the job and to fill those shoes. I've heard several of the candidates say they're not lawyers, but Congressman Hastings was known as a brilliant courtroom lawyer, and he put that on display as he worked in the Congress. We'll do the same thing. I should be the person who's selected to fill those shoes because I've prepared myself from serving in the Florida House and becoming the leader in the House, the Democratic caucus, and being unanimously selected as the leader in the Florida Senate, where I now serve. I'm a father of two. I've practiced law for over 30 years. So, you know, as far as being a career politician, I'm a career businessman. I look forward to continuing the work that I've done as it relates to education, healthcare, criminal justice reform, and of course, economic development for our community. It's going to take a lot of hard work to stand
30
up
seconds remaining.
the shoes of Congressman Hastings. I think that I've demonstrated that leadership in the House, in the Senate, and in my service to our community. Look forward to participating in this forum and look forward to a great debate.
Thank you.
Priscilla Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting us tonight. And it's very good to see you, Rabbi Silver. I haven't seen you in a while. But tell you a little bit about myself. Again, named Priscilla Taylor. I'm a native Floridian, born and raised in Fort Pierce, but have been a resident of Palm Beach County for over 40 years. I have 2 children. Unfortunately, I lost my son about 1.5 years ago, but I have 5 grandchildren and a daughter. Education-wise, I received my undergrad from Barry University. I received my master's degree from Palm Beach Atlantic University in business administration. Politically, I have served as a port commissioner, which much of this area of House District 20 is in. I was then left the port and I went to Tallahassee, served as a Florida State representative. I was Speaker Pro Tem and Minority Whip. I was appointed by then Governor Charlie Crist because one of the commissioners took ill to come back to Palm Beach County as a county commissioner. Served on numerous boards and commissions trying to make things better for the citizens of Palm Beach County. I was the first African-American mayor of Palm Beach County. I left the Palm Beach County Commission in 2016, but I can tell you while I was there, I worked tirelessly for the people of Palm Beach County, for the homeless, for the businesses, just to make things better, because that is why we are in public office. Now you might say, why do you want to go to Washington? First, let me say that I admired Alcee Hastings. I respected him because he was such a good person. And I can tell you that I might not have the voice of Alcee Hastings, but I certainly have the heart that Alcee Hastings had for the people of District 20. I would work for gun control. I would work for police and criminal justice reform, equal rights for women, access to health care, protect the voters' rights, the economy and jobs, because we know that's a heavy lift now, the environment and clean water, and certainly for the farmers and foreign relations. As I said, I have worked, and this is what distinguishes me from the other candidates, is that I have represented the district in the Glades area, probably the most difficult area as a commissioner. I know their issues. I have worked to try to make things better. And I certainly feel that I could maybe not be Alcee Hastings, but my heart is where his heart was, and I could certainly serve the people. Thank you so much for inviting us, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Just want to say that we have a really great panel of candidates, very well qualified, very well spoken, and you kept within the time limits. Is there anyone else that is a candidate that we didn't call on?
Do not believe so.
Good. Then I'm going to ask a series of questions. I'd like to give you 1 minute. I know that's not sufficient time to fully develop the issue, but we kind of just want to get your thoughts quickly on these various issues so we can cover a lot of ground. So I'm going to ask about 6 different issues. And I want to start the first one with what's going on in Israel. What do you think about it? And do you have any solutions? We'll go in the, I guess, the same order as before. All right. So we'll start out with Dale Holness.
Thank you very much. What is going on in Israel is very concerning to all of us. I visited Israel 2 years ago. I saw what the ground looks like. And unfortunately, Hamas is not serving the people that they're supposed to serve well. They are not going to win a war with Israel firing these rockets. Israel must defend itself from these attacks. Hamas need to be taken out. A new leadership put in place that ensure that prosperity is what they were working towards for the Palestinian people. And we must do everything we can to support that effort to do so. What was really interesting for me was that inside Israel, Arabs and Palestinians live amongst the Israeli people in a good way. There was prosperity abounding all over Israel. I visited all over, and it's remarkable what that country has done to create such an advanced system of government and a society.
Thank you very much, Dale. Next, we have Elvin Dowling.
Thank you. I'll try my best to stay within your time limit. First, let me say that I believe that it is critically important that Israel has the right to defend itself, to be clear, without question. I also believe that Hamas should be continue to be labeled the terrorist group that it is. With that being said, I think that in an advanced democracy, it is important for people who believe in the concept of democracy to have proportional responses to aggression. And so with that being said, I am deeply concerned with the loss of life on both sides. And I would strongly urge that we pull back on both sides with the violence and seek a meaningful route to peace that does not include such decimation on both sides.
Thank you. Next, we have
Mr.
Greg.
Musselwhite.
Greg Musselwhite.
Thank you. Yes, what is going on is a very sad state of affairs. Israel has every right as a sovereign nation to protect itself and its people. And as I mentioned before, the U.S. has a history of being an ally to that great country. We must stand by Israel and denounce the terrorism that's going on. The people of Palestine are good people. As one said earlier, the people get along fine. It's that leadership in certain positions of power that are taking measures that I'm quite sure that the general public of that country do not agree with. So there needs to be measures and sanctions against that leadership. And we must show a united front in supporting Israel in their actions to defend themselves. So hopefully there can be a peaceful resolution very soon, because it is a tragic loss of life on both sides. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you
Perry
very much.
Thurston.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, it's really upsetting to see the loss of life that's occurring in Israel right now. Israel has been a great friend of the United States and vice versa. I think that, you know, I was so excited during the signing of the Abraham Accord, which was just recently in 2020. That is the type of coming together by everyone in the region for peaceful resolution and looking for a two-state solution. I think that we have to not be saddened by the loss of life and what we see doing in Israel right now is irresponsible. We've got to come with a solution. I was impressed with the fact that the president is standing by Israel and making sure that they have a right to defend themselves, but also pushing for a ceasefire and pushing for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. I would like to see us go back to that Abraham Accord and make sure that we give Israel the right to protect
Thanks. Now Priscilla Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do feel that Israel should have the right to defend themselves. That is just 100%. But I do feel that at some point that Israel and the Palestinians are going to have to come together and sit down and come up with a solution to this issue. You can't have every 5 to 6 years this war breaking out, and you have humanitarian issues of young people, young children being killed. And what touched me so much was the other day when I was watching television, the young girl who was on television and pointed out and said the innocent people who are being, killed, they are probably good people. And unfortunately, the leaders are not really wanting to solve this issue as much as I think they should. But I feel that there should be a two-state solution. I support Jerusalem being the capital. I think that they should get together, though, and work these problems out. I definitely support a ceasefire now because the humanitarian issues is really getting out of control, and they need to bring it back in. But Israel itself, I support 100%. We just need to work with them, stand by them, and be that ally that we have always been.
And now I'm going to ask you, I know all these questions are tough to answer in a minute, but I'm now going to ask you to answer a question that's very hard to answer in a minute. See if you can handle this. Obviously, you'll just give the broad outline of your position. And that is, what do you think about what's going on with police on Black violence, institutionalized racism, and Black Lives Matter? Let's go in, maybe we'll go in reverse order this time, Sharon.
Sure.
And I'll give you a moment to think about that one. Police violence against Blacks, institutionalized racism, and Black Lives Matter. What do you think about those things? And we'll start with Priscilla Taylor.
Thank you. You know, things are just not starting. We've always had racism here in the United States. The police violence against minorities has always been going on. The issue has been raised. Unfortunately, accountability has not been at the forefront of that. Black Lives Matter is an organization that stepped forward to try to address some of this. You know, I hate the idea that our young people who are right now in school are having to deal and see this. You know, we have the integration in school, and I know, Barry, you probably didn't want to go back this far, but you said that we can bring it out. You know, we had the integration in school so that the students can come together and live together and go to school together. But yet, when they come out and look for jobs, then they're faced with some of the things that the barriers that show the differences that people are looking at. We must deal with accountability. We must have police reform. And be sure that I'm not saying defund the police. We need to have police reform.
Time.
We need criminal justice reform, because we need to take a look at the sentencing guidelines to make sure that the sentencing is not disproportionately affecting minorities.
Thank you. Next we have Perry Thurston.
Thank you, Barry, and thanks for the question. Institutional racism exists. And because it exists, we have to be intentional about overcoming it, about making sure that everyone is treated fairly. Said that I worked as an attorney for over 30 years. Well, I've tried a lot of cases in the court system. We need to have equal justice for all. And that requires us to be intentional about it. Black Lives Matter, I think it's a movement that whose time had come. And I think that when you look across the world, not just the United States, and see all of the people who joined in the protest, Black, white, yellow, who participated in those marches, you see that they all knew that the time has come. When you see something like the George Floyd killing right in your living room, then that's when we have in Congress right now the George Floyd law that we need to get behind and address the issues, the chokehold, the knock and announce rule, the fact that qualified immunity. There's so many things that we need to address, and I've begun to address them in the state, and we'll continue in Congress.
Thanks, Perry. Next we have Greg Musselwhite.
Thank you. Yes, definitely 1 minute is not enough time to undertake this topic. I will begin by saying that I'm disappointed in something that the president said recently, and that was to compare the death of Floyd, which, as tragic as it was, to be more important than our great leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. One of his favorite quotes to me, and I will quote him now, is, "We must learn to live together as brothers, or we perish together as fools." And I think that the message of some of these groups that have arisen lately has taken away from that, and they're not working to solve the problem together. It's a lot of pointing fingers, and I think we need to get past that, and we need to properly fund our law enforcement agencies with more training, more equipment to make them better, and just take care of it and move forward. And the past is the past. We need to learn from it, and we need to make strives to get better. Thank you.
Alvin Dowling.
Thank you. I mentioned that I wrote a book that's been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize and won the Florida Book Award. And so this is an issue that has been important to me for a while. I offer in my book, Still Invisible, Examining America's Black Male Crisis, 90 specific policy prescriptions that we don't have to wait till next week. We don't have to work to wait. We don't have to wait to work for them in the state legislature. We can actually do them right now. And so as an individual who has worn a police officer's uniform, I was a member of the Auxiliary Police Department for the New York Police Department when I served as Chief of Staff for the National Urban League, one of our nation's oldest civil rights organizations. So let me just say this. I don't think we should reform policing. I believe we need to have a complete transformation of how we police in America, and it needs to begin right here in South Florida.
Thank you. Next we have Dale Holness.
Thank you. Well, City Financial did a study last year that was released in September that showed that our nation lost $16 trillion in economic output in our GDP because of the systemic racism that we have within our system. The study also pointed out that if we were to fix it today, we could grow our economy by $5 trillion, which means every American suffers from this system that's in place that's not if it's not dealt with. So I passed a couple of legislation last year, ordinance that created a police and criminal justice oversight board to look at policing and the criminal justice system and bring about reform within our county. Also, an ordinance that created a racial equity task force, bringing together all segments of our community, large businesses, small businesses, Black Lives Matters, NAACP, the bar associations, the chambers of commerce, because we're all affected by this. About 34 different entities will be represented on this board to bring policies and implement them that changes this. Let me give you a couple of statistics.
Time.
You'll have to give it to us in your closing. Everybody's going to get 2-minute closing. Next, I'm going to give you now 30 seconds just to state your position. I know you won't get to explain a whole lot, just to explain your position on various issues. The first one's going to be climate change. Do you think it's a problem? If so, what should we do about it? And this time, let's start with Elvin. No, I'm sorry, Dale Holness. We'll have you start us off. Is it a problem? What should we do about it? 30 seconds.
Climate change is a problem. We must adjust our behavior. We must save our environment. We must change how we operate, use more green technology, save the planet, save the future for us. It is a serious issue. Sea level is rising. Pretty soon we won't be able to be housed in certain parts of Broward County unless we fix this. We are actually making the adjustments now in Broward County through our planning department to accommodate the future environmental issues that we're going to face.
Thank you. Alvin Dowling.
I am an environmentalist. I've been an environmentalist most of my life. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. I have an electric car and a solar roof. And that is because I believe in practicing what I preach. And so as your member of Congress, I will fight to make sure that we make sure that climate change is addressed in a real, meaningful, and significant way.
Thank you. Greg Musselwhite.
As he said, if you follow me at all, you know that I'm a big fisherman and that I've probably got more time on the water than everyone on this panel combined, from kayaking to offshore. Our water is very important to Florida, our way of life, our economy. It is an issue, but not in the traditional sense. Pollution, such as what is coming out of Okeechobee and affecting our waterways, is very important. And our district is where the water needs to go. Everglades restoration and other things that we can actually impact now, today, in a meaningful way will go a long way toward fixing that crisis.
Tom.
Harry Thurston.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Climate change is real. It's a human problem, and we must adjust the way we live in order to better save our economy, save our community, save our rural for the next generation. Solar energy and more green energy is the way to go. institutions and cities and counties that are implementing projections of using solar energy totally in the future are on the right track. And that's what we need to be doing.
Time.
Priscilla Taylor.
Climate change is real. I mean, we can see the water level rising. So we must take steps in order to stop this. I think emission control, the green buildings, hardening of America, the solar energy, all of those are solutions that would get us started. The electric cars, we had Joe Biden was at one of the car manufacturers, and he was driving the electric truck, I think it was, but definitely climate change is real. And if we do not address this issue, who knows what's going to happen here with the world? I mean, you know, it's getting hotter and the glaciers are melting, so we've got to deal with it.
So I'm going to have you go first now on the next question. Next question, the Congress is now trying to figure out what to do about the January 6th insurrection. What do you think we should do? Should we forget about it? Should we investigate it? And what do you think about Trump's role in all of this? And I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer that one, all the candidates. Just real quickly, should we investigate? And what about Trump?
You start with me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. No, you know, tonight, the Republicans in Congress voted against it, but the Democrats did vote for it to have the commission. I think that everyone who attended the January 6th should be held accountable. That is totally unacceptable what happened. And it can start from the president on down. No, I think you know me well enough, Rabbi, to know that I would certainly not endorse that type of behavior. It was awful, and the democracy should not be jeopardized by such actions.
Harry Thurston.
We should investigate and we should prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. I've seen people put in jail for stealing tennis shoes. I think that we set an example of how serious we are, and we won't have this type of occurrence in the future. Investigate, prosecute to the fullest extent of the law, and held everybody, including the president, everybody who's responsible should be held accountable.
Greg.
Okay, it's probably not what you expected to hear from me, but I'm going to agree with the former speaker, Perry Thurston. Investigate and prosecute to the fullest extent of the law anyone and everybody who incites violence through political rhetoric. That goes from President Trump to the lady who inspired me to run for Congress, Maxine Waters. I'm sure she's been on videos and speaking about violence against the other side. But I agree with you, Mr. Thurston, that full transparency and investigation is always a good thing.
Thank you.
I think we're up to Alvin Dowling.
Lock them up.
Thank you very much. Now we have Dale Holness.
We must investigate so we can learn exactly who's responsible. We certainly heard the president. He should be held accountable for the actions that were taken. We must also work to bring more brotherhood and a better way to deal with our issues rather than hate and violence and the kind of things that I see happening where one side is so much against the other. We must work together for the betterment of all Americans, not just some.
I'm going to give you 1 minute for my last question, and then I'm going to open up the floor to questions. I'd like to know your position on abortion. And we can start out, I guess where we started. Dale Holness, could you share with us your views on abortion? And again, I know that it's very hard to do it in a minute, so I understand you're not going to give me your whole position. You're just going to give me a thumbnail sketch. Go ahead, Dale.
So I believe that that's an issue that should be dealt with that person's pastor, rabbi, their doctor, and their family. Though I might not be supportive of it, I think that for government to get involved in that, I don't think that's a place we ought to be. There's so many nuances that could occur, rape and other things, incest. There's so much that's there that I believe that it's something that should be left outside of the government controlling that decision for people.
Alvin Dowling.
So let me begin my comments by saying that I have never had an abortion. And so because I have never had an abortion, it is not my opinion that I should have an opinion on what a woman should do with her body. And I say that, and I want you to understand that I've been called to preach, and I've been preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ for 30 years. But I believe that my rights end where the next person's begins. And so I will never impose my rights or my beliefs on anyone else, and that includes abortion.
Greg Musselwhite.
Okay, I think I can get this done. If you are convicted of murder, that is ending one's life, that is ending someone's heartbeat. So would the inverse not be true, that life begins with a heartbeat? Instead of arbitrary weeks or measurements, I believe that we can get it done, that under extreme circumstances, the life of the mother, rape, incest, as before, it is allowable to do less harm to have that abortion. But I believe also in the rights of the unborn, that once the heartbeat is detectable, then it is a viable life, and that the rules of man say that it's murder. That's not religion. That's you're convicted of murder when you end someone's heartbeat. So that's mine in a nutshell.
Perry Thurston.
Yes, I'm pro-choice. I believe abortion should be available and rare. And I think that is a decision between a woman and her doctor.
Priscilla Taylor.
Thank you. Being the only female on the panel tonight, I certainly feel that a woman should have the right to choose what happens with her body. That is not government's decision. It should be mine.
That takes care of all the questions I had planned. I'm going to turn it over to others. I just want to thank the candidates for doing an amazing job of answering questions. I've heard so many politicians who don't answer questions at all. You guys answered questions, and some of you did it in extremely clear, concise manner. I appreciate it. I also, as a rabbi, appreciate the strong support for Israel. Well, we also feel great compassion for the Palestinian lives that are being lost because they are run by terrorists. The respect for women's rights to choose and the respect for our planet. I can see that we have many candidates who stand for very good things and will do a great job taking over the seat left by Alcee Hastings. I thank you for your candor as candidates. My dad always says that a candidate should be candid, and I appreciate that. Let's turn it over to others. Ask questions, and you can ask to a particular candidate or to the panel. And if it's asked towards one and the rest want to answer, you can do that. Who has a question for? Go ahead, Emily.
Emily first and then Valerie. Go ahead, Emily.
Of course, I have a question. I'd like to hear your opinion on doing away with the Electoral College.
Okay, we'll start with
How much
Dale
time,
Holness.
Rabbi? How much time?
Give him 30 seconds.
Okay.
So the Electoral College is nuanced. I think there's some difficulties with how it's administered. There are smaller states that I believe have too much power and determining what happens to the majority of people. I know that it was put in place to ensure that minority populations or populations in smaller states are not overrun. We've got to study this and find a better way to do or democratic elections to ensure that people's voice are heard and not shut out because they're not represented in a proportional manner.
Elvin Dowling.
Well, let me just say that we have studied this issue. We've studied it for quite a while, and if you study long, you study wrong. At what point do we not say that the Electoral College is an antiquated system that needs to be gotten rid of? When we have millions of Americans whose votes are not as equal as other people who live in smaller states, smaller jurisdictions, there's something wrong with that problem. I believe that the person that wins the most votes in an election should be the person that is elected, period.
Greg Musselwhite.
Okay, I don't know about you, but I'd rather not. 7 counties is all it takes to override an election. That the system was set up to protect your vote here in Florida, or say Iowa or less populated areas, because we all need equal representation. Now, as far as the popular vote, it is almost always reflected in the election that it's close, but the Electoral College is there for a specific reason, and it is to protect your rights, because I don't want New York and California messing up my Florida. Thank you.
Harry Thurston.
The Electoral College has served its purpose and its time is over. We should have one person, one vote. The small states are protected because they, like the major states, get 2 senators. That's the equalizer. We need to get rid of the Electoral College, and we need to rotate the primaries that occur across this country. And we don't need Iowa going first and New Hampshire. We should rotate it such that all the states have an impact and have an impact early.
All right, Priscilla Taylor.
Thank you. The Electoral College should go away. It has served its purpose. It has been around for a long time, but now it is being misused, and we do not need it. So I would support getting rid of it. I know that with the filibuster and everything we are dealing with in Washington, we can't get very much done, but certainly the Electoral College has served its time and it needs to go.
Who is the next one with a question? Valerie?
We, hold on for a second, because I'd like to introduce Commissioner Dr. Barbara Sharif, who has just joined us. I don't believe, Commissioner, you have your video on. Are you available to talk right now?
I'm getting set up. Give me 1 second.
Okay, that's fine. We'll go on and
Okay.
you just give us the high five when you're ready. All
Who
right.
had the next question? Valerie?
It would be Valerie. Yes.
Go ahead,
Valerie,
Valerie.
go ahead.
Well, I'd like to hear everybody answer this, but this was brought up by Priscilla Taylor. And the question that I have is, how do you propose to protect all legitimate citizens' voters' rights?
So Rabbi, how much time do we want to give?
30 seconds. Start with Priscilla Taylor.
We must pass HR 1. We must pass the John Lewis's bill that's in Washington right now. We know the problem right now with all of the states creating their own laws, and the only way that we're going to get beyond that is to have something come from Washington, D.C. One of those bills needs to pass. We know that.
All right, go ahead, Perry Thurston.
I think that both of those bills need to pass. I think that when you see 37 states who are implementing voter suppression type legislation that mirrors each other all over the nation, there's a problem. When Section 5 of the Civil Rights, Voters' Rights was overturned, you have states who have a sordid history of suppressing individuals' votes, gradually moving right back along those lines. When we look at the fraud that's allegedly occurring, and which is the quote unquote motivation for these laws, it's clearly that that's not a problem. So pass the legislation.
Greg Musselwhite.
The Constitution of the United States says that states will run their elections, states' rights. We fought one war over states' rights, among other issues. I believe that one vote, one person is exactly right. Citizens vote. That is our issue, and that is why we need voter ID, which is excluded by HR 1. We also, when you talk about suppression, they said that Georgia, through part of the new legislation, is to suppress votes when they had a record turnout. So,
Alvin Dowling.
Valerie, thank you for the question. And let me just say that voter suppression is real, and it's real right here in the 20th Congressional District of Florida. Right now, 800,000 people in this district do not have a voice in Congress. I am saddened to say that I am the only candidate on this forum that has directly challenged the governor who has intentionally disenfranchised and usurped the rights of 800,000 people in this district. Nobody else stood up but me. I will continue to do so as your member of Congress.
Dale Holness.
We must pass the legislation and encourage as many Americans to vote that has a right to vote as possible. The greater participation, the better the democracy. And unfortunately, the other side realized that reducing the number of people who vote helps keeps them in office. Instead of proposing policies that benefits Americans and use the ideas to win election, they want to reduce the number of people who vote. That's not a winning formula for them, and they're going to lose in the long run.
Commissioner, is it Barbara?
Commissioner Sharif here. Yes.
Barbara
I believe that-
Sharif?
Yes, Commissioner
Go right
Dr.
ahead.
Barbara Sharif, yes.
Do you have,
Yep,
do
you
you
get-
have your picture on?
I'm gonna put my picture up in a minute. I'm not in a
Okay.
place where I can do that.
You got 30
but-
seconds.
Okay, so I believe that the legislation should be passed. Whenever you make it more difficult to have voters vote, you are suppressing the vote. And the Constitution gives everybody the right to vote. And so I think that we need to make it easier. And I would support passing the legislation.
Next question. Who else has a question? Anybody else? Okay. Then I'll have candidates ask questions of the others if you'd like. Are there any candidates who would like to ask a question of the other ones? Or raise a question of your own?
Emily,
Yeah,
do you have
Priscilla
another-
Taylor, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't really think that this is so much a question as a comment, because I know that it was said that we don't need police reform. And I want to just let it be known that I disagree, that we do need police reform, because the way that police are operating today is not what, it is actually not holding them accountable for the things that they are doing, perpetrating crimes against the people that they serve. Some of them are not even qualified to be police officers. So I still say that we need police reform. And of course, everyone has the right to their opinion, but I just wanted to stress that reform is necessary.
I
Let me just
appreciate
hop in.
that.
And
Now
to
I'm gonna
add-
give,
I'd like to respond to that.
go right ahead.
He's referring to a comment that I made. And so let me be clear for Commissioner Taylor and everybody else who's listening. I believe that we don't need police reform. We need police transformation. We need to start all over from the beginning. You know, the budget, for example, in Palm Beach County for the Sheriff's Department has ballooned year after year after year. The years that Commissioner Taylor was on the county commission and the years that she was off the county commission. The sheriff's office budget has bloomed. And what has happened? They have continued oftentimes to disenfranchise and to hurt people and to abridge their civil rights. Someone has to stand up for the people. If not our leaders, then who? And so I believe that we need to completely transform how we police, particularly in Black and brown communities. We need to have police oversight boards. We need to make sure that there is accountability at the top level, and it needs to begin right now.
I appreciate that. I'll give the other candidates a chance to respond. Dale, would you like to share some thoughts on that?
Yes, it's not just policing that needs to be reformed. The whole criminal justice system needs to be reformed. Let me give you some statistics. The Tribune and Tampa Bay Tribune did some research, and they found that if you're Black and you went before a white judge, you're going to get 20% longer sentence for the same crime under the same circumstances than someone white. Blacks make up about 16% of the population in Florida, yet they are 49% of the people in our prisons. You're Black, you're two and a half times more likely to be killed by a police statistically than if you're white. There's a serious issue at hand, and it affects all of us Americans. Because when we make people not able to be productive and produce for themselves by locking them up or putting them in a position where they have to be dependent on our system, it's costing us a lot of money. In Broward County, a budget next year, the sheriff is requesting $300 million for jail, up from $280 million. That's a waste of taxpayers' dollars.
Thanks, Dale. Greg Musselwhite, go ahead, weigh in on this.
Yeah, I think it goes much deeper than that. I think there are underlying statistics that no one's brought up. I would like to see not only education, but family values back in homes. A lot of these are results of a broken home, single parent, and no male influence on some of these kids. It is part of a bigger problem. So it doesn't lay wholly with changing the police, but changing culture. And we need to get back to family values and give these kids some role models to try to help keep them out of trouble.
Barbara Sharif.
I think a larger part of the criminal justice system where juveniles are concerned relates to generational poverty. I think in many of these areas where you see a high crime rate and a high arrest rate in our Black and brown communities, you see high poverty rates. So I think we need to give chances, educational opportunities, the ability to continue on after high school, even though parents can't pay for that. I think that's where we can make the biggest change and reform in terms of giving these kids and young adults a chance. And so I don't think it just has to do with police reform, but it has to also do with the environment that they're being raised in, the support that we give them, not just from a community level. So I think it has to do more from that.
I think we haven't heard from Perry Thurston on this.
You're absolutely right. And I think that what we've heard from the panelists is that police reform, transformation of the police department, criminal justice reform, we're all saying basically the same thing. And we do need to have reform. We need to look at our current state of policing because it's not working. And there are a number of suggestions. We filed a number of bills to address those issues this session. The George Floyd law that's pending in Congress right now addresses police reform. And as Congressman Clyburn has said, we're not talking about defunding the police. We're talking about maybe doing some of those things that Dr. Sharif was talking about, moving the money here, putting more money into mental health. There's so many things that we can do, but we need to do something.
I want to follow up on that because I believe that that is one of the critical areas and issues in this district, which represents a large number of African Americans. And I just want to share with you that as a rabbi, the Jewish community is extremely concerned with what's going on in the African American community. We always have been, and we marched hand in hand with Martin Luther King and Black activists. So I'm going to devote more time to this issue, which I think is a critical one. And I'm going to ask you a tough question that was raised by Greg. We know that there's a lot of problems in the police. Is there anything that you recommend for what's going on in the African American community that you find to be responsible for some of the violence? I'll just give you, for instance, I've heard many times, well, if you're Black, there's a much higher percentage that you're going to be shot by a police officer. But if you're Black, there's a higher percentage of chance that you're going to be involved in a violent crime. Is all of that just a matter of discrimination, or is there something in the Black community that needs to be addressed? And it was raised by Greg. So Greg, I'll let you start off on that.
Yes.
And let the other ones, I'm going to give you a minute to respond to that question.
Thank you. And following up what I had brought up, Commissioner Sharif did expound a little bit about what I was talking about, the underlying issues, the home life, the education, the economic opportunities. These are all contributing factors to a greater problem. It's manifesting itself in the high visual mainstream media events when there is a tragedy, such as a death with Floyd and some of these others, and they get publicized. But what could have happened to prevent that in his instance? Would economic opportunity or better drug programs or more education concerning those things? So it's not just about the police. I'm a former correctional officer. I know some of the training they go through. I know the programs. So I may be a little bit of a different perspective, so I can see past what the mainstream media has been presenting and what's in your face 24/7. But we need to get to the underlying issues. And I think that is family life, get back to church.
Right.
And that's what we need to do.
Barbara Sharif, he mentioned your comments, so I'll have you respond. You have a minute to respond. Is it all racism that's going on, or is there something going on in the Black community to be addressed?
So I believe that this is continuous racism. It has been continuing for hundreds of years. It's going to continue on now because there is an implicit bias that goes on when a police officer makes a stop, and that contributes to higher arrest rates for African Americans, Black and Brown community, etc. And what I was expounding upon in terms of opportunities to prevent this is that many times when people come from a household with two parents working minimum wage jobs, there is no way to get out of generational poverty. And we as a Congress can afford an opportunity by granting more Pell Grants, helping more community colleges, and helping more students to break that cycle. And so I don't agree that it's just a problem with the community. I also think that there need to be better relations between police officers and the community, in the Black community. And so that goes back to training and decreasing excessive use of force. And George Floyd's death was not a result of his environment. It was a result of a knee on his neck. And I think that the police officer who used excessive force on George Floyd got exactly where he needed to be. Thank you.
Rabbi, we need
Yeah.
to have Priscilla because she needs to leave.
Yeah, Priscilla Taylor, go right ahead.
Thank you, Rabbi Silver. I actually, in listening to this, it really bothers me, really, because we know that the criminal justice system, the jails in the United States, have more people than any other country, in the world, really. So we are locking people up. We have the citizen guidelines are set so that the African American and the minorities are the ones who are actually locked up, put in jail. And this, if it's a young person, follows them for the rest of their lives. If you talk about what you can do is talk to the judges, because you are an attorney as well, and I know that you do have a voice, about how they sentence these young people. If a young Black guy comes in and have a little bit of marijuana, he's apt to get a charge of a felony. If you get a felony on your record, and if you have a scholarship pending, you're going to lose that. And then if you have crack and then cocaine, you might get 30 years because you have crack cocaine, and yet you might have your white friends who have cocaine and get a slap on the wrist. It is unequal justice. And when I was a county commissioner, I brought people in from Washington and other places to talk to the young people. And I also started a Migrant Keepers program because our young people need to hear what's going on that can affect their lives.
Thanks, Priscilla. I wish the judges would actually listen to me. If they did, I'd be glad to talk to them. I'm going to have everybody wrap up with 2 minutes after this question. And so, Priscilla, if you do have time, I'll put you first to wrap up. I'd like to hear now from Reverend Dowling.
I believe that love is an action word. And so let me tell you what I've done when it comes to young Black boys and the challenges that we face. I have personally raised more than $2 million to mentor young Black boys in 69 cities across this country, to include West Palm Beach, Riviera Beach, Belle Glades, South Bay, Miramar, and Fort Lauderdale. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. And so let me just say this. This is an issue that I have studied. I'm not just pulling numbers out of the air. I've actually researched it. It took me 5 years to write a book on this very issue. And so let me just say, I would encourage Greg Musselwhite to read my book. And if you're interested, I'll even sell it to you for a discount, because you're woefully mistaken on a whole lot that you said. And so let me just clear some things up. First and most importantly, as Dr. Sharif said, it all starts with institutional racism. This is a 401-year problem that has manifested itself over and over and over again. I will also say that we have challenges within the African American community that we need to begin to address ourselves. But let's be clear about this. The challenges when it comes to the economy, it's all a problem and it comes down on us and we've got to do something about it.
Thank you. Dale Holness.
You're muted,
Oh,
Dale.
you're on mute. You have to unmute, Dale.
As a Black man in Broward County in South Florida, and the same goes for Palm Beach, I'm twice as likely to be stopped for not wearing a seatbelt as someone white. When you police me more than someone else, we're going to have the kind of issues that we have. And it leads further into higher poverty rate, which then further perpetuate the issue. So I'm sorry, but yeah, we may have some problems that can be dealt with differently. But let me give you another one. We have a civil citation program that when you look at who gets civil citation for misdemeanor offense as far as the youths go, it's not the Black kids. In Broward County, they give them to the folks in Western, not in the Northwest community of Fort Lauderdale. So we have a problem. Yes, it's a great problem that we must face. But one of the things that all Americans must realize, it's not just Black people suffering from this, because if you lock people up as we do as a nation, then your productivity is reduced, your output is reduced, your competitiveness with the rest of the world is reduced. We have to fix this as one people. All of us need to be a part of the solution to this. And that's why I put together that criminal justice police oversight board and that racial equity task force, because we must all come together to find a solution to this issue and fix it.
Thank you. I think we still have Perry Thurston to hear from.
You're absolutely right again, Rabbi, and thank you. And you know, the question is sort of a loaded question because it assumes so much in the way that the question is asked. However, there are issues in our community, and there are lots of things that we can do. There are things that we're doing right now in mentoring and helping our youth, but we could have more mental health services in the community to help out with some of the problems. We could have people making a livable wage so that they can take care of their responsibility. That safety net could be there. But when you take an issue like this, and you have told young Black men and Black women now that there's a certain way you have to interact with police officers. We have to have that talk with the young men in our community. Our fathers had that talk with us. The trend continues, and that's a problem. So just because you say, well, oh, this kid here, he's gonna be committing more crime. Every Black kid in America has to be concerned with being over-policed, being treated differently than other citizens when they're stopped. That's inappropriate. So we do need to address that. It's a problem, and it's a problem we need to resolve.
Thank you. I am going to now give everyone 2 minutes to sum up, and I'm going to start with Priscilla Taylor so she can run off and deal with her child, and everyone will get 2 minutes to wrap up, and then I'll offer a concluding statement. Priscilla Taylor, it's all yours.
Thank you, Rabbi Silver. And again, thank you all so much for holding this panel discussion tonight. As I said, I don't know if you probably, some people talked tonight about being a veteran politician or having served in politics. Well, yes, I have served in politics in a couple of positions. I was a port commissioner. I was a state representative. I was county commissioner, mayor. But I can tell you in each one of the positions that I held, it gave me the experience to represent the people of those districts. I dealt with the Glades area firsthand and looking at the issues that they faced with the water and the farmers and what needed to be done to help them survive. As a state representative, I dealt with the homeless because I just felt that as I had a symposium once and a veteran stood up and he says, you know, you all can send men to the moon, but you can't make sure that people like me have some place to stay and something to eat. So I feel that what I have done addressing all of these issues, the homeless, the affordable housing, I started police reform before we had even gotten the word out here on it when I was a county commissioner. I stood up to our sheriffs and I said, we need body cams. You know, obviously it was filed, but it did pass with, I got the other commissioners to agree to an ordinance. I also got them to agree to the civil citations that was talked about for in Broward. So most of these issues I have dealt with. As I said, that I also started a My Brother's Keepers to help our young men in dealing with the things that's going on in the community, helping the women to have training programs to get our people ready for jobs that we are trying to bring into the area. This particular district is a vast district. You have West Palm, then you skip over so much of area, and then you get to Broward. Then you have all of Belle Glades, South Bay, and Pahokee. And the different areas, you have different concerns. The poverty level out in the Glades area is very high. It's 2 minutes up already? Okay.
Yeah. I'm
Time
sorry.
flies. Priscilla, take 1 second to wrap up, and we'll go to the next person.
Okay, thank you. I want to fight and continue to fight for the people of House District 20. As I started out saying that I might not have the voice of Alcee Hastings, who I respected totally, but I have the heart for the people of House District 20. And I want to fight for them to make things better and to continue the things that Alcee Hastings started. So
Thank
the
you so much.
election is November 2nd. Please remember my name. And thank you, and you all have a very good night.
Thanks, Priscilla.
Okay.
Thank you,
Next
Priscilla.
one we're going to have is Perry Thurston. Take 2.25 minutes now, because she got a little extra. 2.25 minutes to wrap up. Go right ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for that equal time. You know, I want to thank you all for having this forum, giving us the opportunity. You had said earlier that there are some of us who answers questions and we answered them precisely. I would put myself in that category. But more importantly, I have a record that I'm proud of. I have a record of service. I have a record of being a businessman in the community. I have a record of being a part of my community. So when it comes to the issues that you're concerned about, I'm not telling you what I'm going to do when I get to Congress. You can look at what I've already done. Look at the continuing leadership that I've provided in the Florida House and in the Florida Senate, where I was unanimously selected as the leader. But more importantly, you know, my family is important to me. When I talk to you about public education, I'm not just saying something. These are not just words. My mother was a school teacher for 30 years in the public school system. Her siblings all attended Broward County Public School. I and my brothers and my sibling all attended public school. And both of my children, who are out trying to change the world now, are both proud graduates of the Broward County Public School System. I'll continue to fight for justice as I did and I do as a criminal defense lawyer, as I've done in the House, and as I do in the Senate. It's time for a new leadership, new vision, and we're gonna have an opportunity to do that and to provide that type of leadership, because who's ever selected will stand on the shoulders of a giant, Alcee Hastings. So we should provide better leadership. With that type of background, we're gonna make a change, and the change is gonna come through Perry Thurston as your next congressman for District 20. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Perry. Next we have Greg Musselwhite.
Thank you. First, I would like to say, Mr. Dowling, I would love to read your book. As an inspector, we read a lot of code specifications and other. I'm always ready to learn something. I may not agree with it, but I will read it. Lay a couple facts on you. I told you I work in the industry. I have worked in everything from wind, solar, nuclear, geothermal. I've helped build the power plant right there in Riviera Beach, Turkey Point, St. Lucie Nuclear, and several others in the area. And I will tell you that the best option for zero carbon is nuclear. We need to be looking that way. So I can bring a little bit of expertise to that. Now, transitioning into, I don't know if you know this, but the median household income in Pahokee is $27,000, whereas the median income in Miramar is $70,000. This income inequity goes back to opportunity, education, and other factors. I would like to help to bring success and economic opportunity to the entire district, using my connections in the various industries to bring something that is sorely lacking in the area, and that's return of manufacturing jobs. We have a service-related economy, and our second is agriculture. We need to bring a diversification of our economy and those jobs to the district so that when something happens like COVID or a hurricane, the entire South Florida economy isn't put on hold. So I bring something to the table. It's experience nationwide in the energy fields and other fields to strengthen our economy and education. So no, I'm not a politician. I am, as you said, a businessman, and I've traveled the country to see who does it well, who doesn't do it well, and try to bring the best of those options to South Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Next we have Alvin Dowling.
Thank you for this opportunity. First, let me just begin by saying that if you always do what you've always done, you're going to always get what you always got. And doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result is frankly pretty crazy. And so let me just say that I come into this race because I believe in people. My whole theme is Dowling for the people. I have spent my life uplifting people in this community. Now, I could spend the next minute and a half using the term I over and over again. I could tell you how I've been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. I could tell you how I was chief of staff for one of America's largest civil rights organizations. I can tell you how I've raised millions of dollars to mentor these young Black boys that we have talked about just this evening. But at the end of the day, this election is not about Elvin Dowling. And frankly, it's not about Perry, Thurston, or Dale Holdness or anybody else. It's about you. It's about the district. It's about our hopes, our dreams, and our future. And so there are three things that I would like to do as your congressman. There's been a lot of talk about Pahokee and the concern about Pahokee. But I'm in Pahokee. I'm chairman of one of the largest food banks in this county. We have provided nearly 20 million pounds of free food to the people in Pahokee, South Bay, Belle Glades, Riviera Beach, West Palm Beach since COVID hit. The difference between me and everyone else is we have all been there at our food distributions. They show up with cameras and I show up with trucks. And I show up every single week in Pahokee, South Bay, and all of these other places that we all say that we're so concerned about. I'm there every day, every week. I will continue to do so. I'm looking to serve real people in a real way, and I would be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Dale Holness. You're still on mute. Please. You got to unmute yourself, Dale. There you go.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Silver and Va-Dor for hosting this event. The shoe that we have to fit into is one of the late Congressman Alcee Hastings, who was a champion for people. He supported those who were oftentimes without a voice. This district has some of the highest poverty rates of any at all across this nation. So the focus for me is to bring solutions and how we move prosperity to those who have not had it. That's got to be the biggest issue that I believe we face within this district. And I've demonstrated that as a small businessman and helping put programs together that helps that. I chair the Broward Black Elected Officials organization here in Broward County and formulated a Black action plan. And yes, the district's majority Black and everybody must be included in this opportunity. But we have to focus on where the biggest issues are, in my belief, as a nation, and strengthen those who are weakest so that we can all be stronger. So some of the things that I think we must work on is increase home ownership in these communities so that there's stability within them. We must support the businesses that are located in these communities, small business, minority and women-owned businesses. are the engine that drives economy within these communities. And I've done that. At Broward County, when I got there, 10.25% of our procurement went to small minority and women-owned business through a procurement process, the CBE program. Today, we're at 44%, and that's because I've been very focused on that. My colleagues on the dais have complimented me in my focus in helping these businesses. That's something that we must do. The entrepreneur spirit of Americans, to work extra, to be innovative, to be creative, is what helped drive us to where we are. We're in a competitive environment around the world. We must compete with the rest of the world and sell more of our goods and our services to the rest of the world. That's something that I've worked on, putting together a program called FITSE, Florida's International Trade and Cultural Expo, where in 2019 we had 60 countries represented with about 2,000 people in attendance. That's now leading to us heading towards building a World Trade Center for Lauderdale, where we build a logistics hub to bring businesses from around the country and the world to do business. Prosperity is important for all our people.
Thank you very much, Dale. Now we have Barbara Sharif.
I'm Dr. Barbara Sharif. I've been a county commissioner now for just over 10 years. I was in municipal government for 2 years as a city of Miramar commissioner and vice mayor. I served Broward County twice as mayor in its 100-year history, first African-American female mayor. I am self-made. I have a home health care company that serves Dade and Broward counties with over 250 healthcare professionals. And I'm proud to say that I am a doctor of nursing practice, 28 years in the nursing profession. One of the things that I think was in dire need of addressing is the healthcare issues. Prescription drug costs are out of control. The cost of healthcare is out of control, and the Affordable Care Act has not been implemented fully. I plan to advocate in Congress for that, to complete coverage for those who cannot afford the Affordable Care Act or Medicaid by expanding to a federal Medicaid too, and covering those lives and decreasing the cost of health care. Additionally to that, I served as the Florida Association of Counties president and advocated for all 67 counties in the state of Florida, nationally and locally. I served on a national bipartisan health steering committee for 9 years through National Association of Counties, and I addressed many issues from juvenile justice, detention costs, Medicaid, Medicare expansion, and indigent care and homelessness. As a congressperson, we need to address affordable housing, increase HUD dollars to create housing vouchers for those who can't afford it, and to assist counties and cities in making sure that no one is homeless. As a county commissioner, I fought with the sheriff to get law enforcement trust funds allocated to HMIS, and we now have an HMIS system to process people who are experiencing homelessness and get them the help that they need. I think that as a congressperson, you would want somebody that has this type of experience and background so that I can handle the issues nationally. I have relationships and I've dealt with presidents, governors. Over the period of time, I've dealt with gun violence, with the shooting at the airport, natural disasters, and bringing down federal funding and grants and programs to assist the community in furthering recuperating from these types of events. We need common sense gun approach, gun laws that make sense, gun screening that makes sense. As a victim of gun violence at the age of 14, I lost my father because someone tried to rob him and killed him in front of my 19-year-old sister. Nothing has changed. And at this point, we must do better. We must advocate for common sense gun laws. That's what I'm going to bring to Congress. I'm going to bring all my life experience, my business experience, and my experience as a public servant, an elected official for the last 12 years to Congress. I'm Dr. Barbara Sharif. The election is November the 2nd, and I'm humbly asking for your support.
I do want to thank you and all of the candidates for doing an amazing job of responding to the questions. I also want you to know that Congregation Va-Dor is totally committed to working with the African American community to address some of the problems that you could see comes right from your heart, about the inequality and the institutionalized racism and the issues of tossing people into jail indiscriminately and ruining lives. We care deeply about that, and we're always available to dialogue and to work with you. And I appreciate that many of you have mentioned so many things that you're doing of a charitable nature, and we're here to work with you. We definitely appreciate that. I did have that talk when I was, I have 2 kids. I've sued the police many times. I've seen them act in reckless, violent ways. I know most of them are good, but too many of them are not. And I had to talk with my kids. And I told them, if the police tell you to do something, just do it, because they could kill you and you don't know who's there. You don't know what their background's like. You are in their hands. You need to just listen to what they're saying, even if they're crazy, irrational, or whatever. But I also know that for African Americans, it's far worse than anything I could have to warn my kids about. And we care deeply about that. And we will work with you, as we worked with Alcee Hastings, to try to do away with people who have a badge and the power of life and death and use it indiscriminately. It's too important a power to give to people. They're not going to use it carefully. So we respect the police, but you cannot allow any bad apples in the police. We also will be available between now and November 2nd. If you want to have a platform, if you want to come to Va-Dor and share things with us, if you want to get us involved in what you're doing, we are involved with the community. We'll be doing more candidate forums. You guys were awesome, did a great job. I thank Sharon for orchestrating this and being the timekeeper. My yarmulke is off to you. You did a great job, all the candidates. Please come back again. And thank you for allowing the people to hear you, because right now in our system, money talks in politics. The more money you have, the more you can get out the message. We hope to equalize that by allowing forums to get your word out without you having to spend a dime. So instead of having an auction that goes to the highest bidder, we have elections that go to the best candidates. Thank you very much, everybody. It was a pleasure being with you, and we'll be seeing you soon in the future.